Welcome to MIDI's Innovation Vault podcast. In this episode of Medtech's Next Wave, Innovators from LSI, we're joined by Nic Purcell, founder of Purcell, a London-based life science startup. Purcell is developing smart, reusable inhalers and an AI platform to improve the quality of life for patients with respiratory diseases. Inspired by his own health challenges, Nic's innovative device tracks inhaler use with sensors to ensure proper technique and medication delivery. Purcell is also creating an at-home diagnostics device to detect and classify up to 10 respiratory diseases. Despite navigating the challenges of the medical device industry, Nic has secured key academic partnerships and plans to raise funding in 2025 to scale the technology. Join us to hear how Purcell is shaping the future of respiratory care.
Welcome to the MIDI Innovation Vault podcast, where we dive into the latest innovations and game changers in the medical industry. I'm your host, Gregory Montalbano, the COO of MIDI Medical Product Development. And each episode, we speak with leaders who are pushing the boundaries of healthcare technologies, exploring their journeys, the solutions they're building, and the impact they hope to make. So today, I'm excited to welcome Nic Purcell, founder of Purcell, which is a life science startup based in London. So Purcell is developing reusable smart inhalers alongside of an AI-based platform aimed at improving patients' quality of life. Nic, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Greg. It's good to be here, man. Thanks for having me. I think, how do we want to kick it off?
Let's kick it off. So to start things off, Nic, can you give us a bit about your background and what inspired you to start Purcell? And for those who may be new to Purcell, could you share an overview of what the company is working on and its main goals as well as its device?
Sure, no worries. Well, I'll start with my journey. I suppose I got into medtech when I was probably in my late 30s, and that kind of came around because I was diagnosed early with a heart disease, and I was struggling with medication adherence and being hospitalized a lot. And during that kind of process of it's quite emotional, being hospitalized and having your heart restarted. So during that process, I saw a friend of mine using his asthma inhaler for his respiratory disease. And it just kind of dawned on me that chronic disease has got is very similar across the board. So whether or not that's the stigma, the medication adherence, and the other issues that arise. So that's kind of how I got into it. But my background's originally, I'm an artist. I've got a creative background, so oil painting and drawings really is part of it. But I think the thing that kind of marries the two together, because it is a bit of a strange connection, is from art to medtech. But it's really about the human condition. These are these things that I'm really interested in. So that's kind of how we started the company.
Excellent. And maybe give an overview of the device, its application, and what you're currently working on from that standpoint.
Sure. Well, you were saying like there's a smart inhaler and the kind of AI platform connected to it. That's where we kind of started. We're also working on an at-home diagnostics device as well. So that was kind of born from the fact that we'd seen these issues with the existing devices. They were a classic inhaler was designed in the 1950s. So it's really a kind of drug delivery device only. So we realized that these stigmas, which are the leading barrier to health seeking and case detection, we thought, well, if we can consumerize this product, then we can engage with the patients. Well, we can get the patients to engage with their medication better.
Absolutely.
Think of it like, I don't have my glasses on, but it's very similar to eyewear. It used to be very stigmatized and kind of dorky, and so we thought if we could kind of tackle that and integrate technology, then we could be tracking how well the patients are using their devices. Be able to do lung profiling or detect what disease they've got, and then be able to give them and also their clinicians clinical data in the real world. So that's kind of where we started. I think since then, that kind of, this kind of like post-diagnosis treatment advice, with the kind of technology that led us into this at-home diagnostics tool, which we're looking at, our primary kind of focus is respiratory diseases. So at the moment, the algorithms that we've been deploying, we can roughly it's roughly around 10 diseases that we can classify at the moment. So, yeah.
It's very exciting. Yeah, and certainly patient compliance with medication is always the holy grail. And if we can develop device and systems, whether it's at-home health monitoring or respiratory devices that fit in with their lifestyle, not only the personal lifestyle, but their activities during the day, that's really where it's at. And also monitoring. So, basically co-pollinating all of those disciplines together and developing a robust device is really the goal. So when you've taken on this unique mission to improve respiratory health and at-home monitoring and others, utilizing smart technology and AI, what challenges within this field did you experience, with regards to standing out from existing options on the market, and how to competitively differentiate your technology and your application within this medtech market, whether it's, again, at-home monitoring or drug delivery or others?
Yeah, sure. Well, I start with the hurdles. There's always hurdles. I think probably some of the big ones initially was coming from outside the industry. So it was like a really quick uptake into understanding, just really, we're in this kind of compliance and this highly compliant and regulated industry. So that was a really big. It wasn't a hurdle. It was more of an eye opener, to be honest. But yeah, I think gaining access to, or starting to collaborate with people in the industry who we need to be talking to, and but I kind of found like the kind of being able to get over that and being able to access the people we wanted to work with, it really just came down to reaching out to them and saying, "Hey, look, this is what this is what our mission is. This is what we're developing. Would you like to be working together? And is there a way for us to collaborate?" And I think that's something that's been a really, I suppose, throughout the journey, a really big part of it for me is having that kind of openness and willingness to kind of just be out there talking to people about what we're doing.
Yeah, it's whenever we're developing medical products, gathering as much information as possible and then prioritizing it, right, with the voice of the customer, with the market-based groups, whether it's a device that is disposable or requires maintenance, has technicians applying it, physicians, surgical or others, gathering the pre, during, and post usage ceremony and talking to those individuals, infusing that into the methodology of the device, really allows you to take that next step. And as I understand, there's an AI and machine learning element with your device, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So can you walk me through some of the elements relative to machine learning, and whether it's the inhaler or the at-home monitoring devices that you're developing, or diagnostic devices, how that plays a role in predictive analysis and determination of whether it's elements of patient compliance or medication, or measuring maybe the patient's biometrics or others. What
Sure.
sort of your secret sauce in there?
Yeah, I think, well, we're still under development. So, I'll
let go of any secrets. I understand.
Sure. I'll try not to.
Yeah.
I think, like the big thing for us, it's like, it's around the device technique, specifically for the smart inhaler. It's all around, did they use the device correctly? That's what delivers that's what enables the correct delivery of the medication. So we're measuring volume and pressure of inhalation with a pressure sensor. We've got a microphone in there to listen to their lungs so that we can understand It's called the orchestra of the lung. So we can listen to that, and that helps to kind of classify what disease they've got and some severity. Also, the pressure sensor can enable that as well, because it kind of works like a spirometer as well. So and then the optical sensor that's in there, we're using that to object detect in the back of the throat, so that we can tell the patient when they should be dosing that medication. So,
Hmm.
because if you think about it, it's pretty simple. It's like a spray can, and if you move it upwards or on the axis one way or the other, the spray goes to wherever you're pointing it. So you really want to kind of optimize that as much as you can. So,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
I was
yeah.
experiencing that over Thanksgiving. I had bronchitis and was using an inhaler. I haven't used one since I was a teenager. So, the doctor said, if you point it up too high or too low, it's going to go in your tongue. It's not going to go in your throat. And I second guessing myself to death, with regards to how I'm using it. So
Yeah.
definitely, I just experienced that firsthand. So,
Yeah, like if you're like if and I don't know whether or not this is a chronic situation for you, but if you have to take these medications every day and you're having that experience every day, the
mhm.
last thing you want to be thinking about is like, did I use this thing correctly every single time you use it? Because you may fall into the trap of believing that you're using it correctly and you're not, which means that you're not getting the therapeutic benefit you should be, but also there's also this kind of level of anxiety around the medication and having to take it, because if you do have severe asthma, or then there's a chance that if you don't take the medication correctly, then you'll have an exacerbation. You could end up in hospital, or you could die. So these things are really critical, and this is very similar to the experience that I had when I when pre-ablation for my heart condition. But if I didn't take my medication, there was a high chance that I would end up in hospital the next day. So yeah.
It's happening with my mother, who has COPD, and she has inhalation medication, not like an inhaler. It's slightly different, but she's 88, and teaching her to do it, she consistently was doing it incorrectly on her own. If there was something where I wasn't there that can help her, to reap the results, right? Because she's taking the medication, there are side effects, dry mouth, and others. But the reality is she's not getting the proper dosage, and it's not being delivered. So she's getting demotivated, and then she stops using it, and then she lies to me that she's using it because it has no tracking device, AI, or wireless connectivity to let me know she's using it or not. And you
Yeah.
get into this downward cycle of trying to maintain her health. So certainly experiencing that firsthand as we speak as well. So talking about like AI, digital health platforms in respiratory or other product applications and the new dynamics for patient engagement, how have you seen the healthcare community that you're engaging with on these devices, including providers and patients, respond to Purcell's technology so far? And what are the strategies that you're using to support its adoption in these clinical settings, or maybe it's just clinical or home healthcare? I'm not sure if you're doing both or one or the other.
Yeah, sure. Well, kind of stepping back to us being in development, I think like the engagement that we're having at the moment, it's really around kind of patients or healthcare provider studies or surveys and interviews. So, but I think the response is that if we can provide better treatment and early diagnosis, and make it an easier decision matrix for the clinician as well, by providing them with this real world data, then we're going to be able to solve a lot of issues. One, for the patient, when it comes to like what you were just talking about with your mum, and being able to understand, are they taking the medications, are they doing it correctly, or are they just dosing these things into the air because they've become non-compliant. This is some of the stuff that happens. So but yeah, we have had a pretty good response, I think. I would say probably more so on the home diagnostics or, this diagnostics device.
Mhm.
I think the, early diagnosis and intervention is really, really critical. So
Mhm.
it's been interesting to see that, we started with the drug delivery aspect. And kind of moving into that the diagnostics, and that was, I think that is, I think because it's more closely tied to prevention and
Mhm.
value-based care and all those types of things that we've had a better response. So
Excellent. Excellent. So switching gears, let's talk about starting and scaling a med tech company. And what I've discovered in just being in this field for 30 years is that it's really a journey filled with unique challenges. And maybe for our audience, could you share some of the significant hurdles, challenges that you face development wise, fundraising wise, technology or others in your early stages, and whether in technology development, regulatory process, securing funding, whatever comes to mind, maybe you can share with our audience.
sure. Yeah, well, kind of starting out, I was like, I felt, looking back at it, I was pretty naive about the whole situation. I was like, hey, here's this idea of, this could change people's lives. Let's go and do the research. So I spent a few years researching and then kind of got into we started working on it. But I think even like, yeah, I think that was a big hurdle for me personally. Just not coming from the industry and knowing like just how like all the rigor and around all the comps and regs and and all the clinical aspects that were going to be tied to it. And I thought that it would be it'd be faster moving than it is. Then that was a quick realization that it's much slower moving industry than others. So. But I think the one of the big hurdles was actually being able to understand, even though this is in relation to the smart inhaler, even though it is quite a simple product,
Mhm.
um, it's actually because ours is quite compact. It's the same size as a normal inhaler, but it's got all the technology in it. That's very tricky to do. And initially, the idea of of putting this tech inside of it, the hurdle was convincing people that we could do it. So that's taken quite a few years actually. But we started the company right at the start of 2020. And that kind of happened because obviously COVID kicked off, and we were like, okay, well, we're working in this respiratory space. We need to you know incorporate and submit patents and things. But that kind of that did happen. COVID had a knock on it. Obviously, it wasn't just for us; it was for everybody. But yeah, so I think a couple of years of you know trying to get grant applications in, being rejected, and not understanding why, and having frustrations around that kind of stuff because you're trying to develop a product that can help people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I think they were initial hurdles, but once we started getting traction with we had we've got a fractional C-suite team. There's some really highly skilled people from the industries, whether or not they're coming from because it's multidisciplinary team, kind of
Mhm.
coming from from the creative side, or whether or not we do have Andy, who's the Director of Communications and Public Affairs for Pfizer as well in Australia, New Zealand, Korea. So we kind of put this diverse team together. And as that started to happen, then, well, okay, we kind of got over the hurdle of, the team validation stuff, which is a big thing. And then we started to get, we kind of went through some accelerator programs to validate the company as well and what we're working on. So I think it's a lot about kind of proving who you are and your your ability to persist, really,
Need
I think that's
need a lot of
yeah,
spirit, courage, and persistence. Yeah,
courage and persistence. Yeah.
courage
So
is number one.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
there are a lot of hurdles. There's funding, there's development, technology,
yeah,
trials. There's many different hurdles. But having that persistence and that stamina is really what separates companies that don't make it versus companies that do. And it's
yeah,
certainly, we've interviewed many CEOs such as yourself and startup and emerging companies, and they all have the same story to tell, that it has been a long road, but again, everybody believes in their vision. And if you can de-risk, and if you can identify good partners and good collaborations to support you, you can propel yourself forward, weather storms, and make things happen. So that's certainly
that's
important.
true.
So sort of segueing to that, as I mentioned, collaboration in medtech, having strategic collaborations are key to growth. Have any partnerships or collaborations that you've interfaced with, whether it's internally or externally, played an important role in helping Purcell reach its milestones and expand its capabilities and its technology applications?
Sure. Yeah, I think that, well, there's probably three kind of key areas on the collaboration side. One's is the accelerator programs. And, we were lucky to get into one that's called Mass Challenge recently this year. And that's, when you go through those programs, you get to, you kind of, I think with Mass Challenge, there was 2,400 companies globally that applied, but only 5% get in. Do you know what I mean? So when stuff like that happens, that's like they're really good moments. But the academic collaborations that we started in 2023. We did some market access for the UK and Europe with Copenhagen Business School. We did another one with the School of Business and Economics in Portugal, and those two first collaborations were. I was like, oh wow, we can we can leverage each other's needs here, right? Mm-hmm. And then towards the end of 2023. Because we're still unfunded, it was like, okay, well, how do we keep on progressing? And it turned out that we ended up with probably about another 5 academic collaborations. One's with ASU, the other one's with Northeastern University, Langara College, Sheridan College, as well as we've got another one with Nova as well this year as well, and University of East London. So what we like, those collaborations, we've enabled, what we've been able to do is leverage the postgrads or the master's students doing their thesis, saying, okay, well, what is it that we need addressed? And we gain access to a broad range of resources and skill sets. So ASU, we currently have about 45 interns across mechanical, hardware, software, and computer science, or even biomed or project management. So those have been really key in us. We've done a lot of development this year. It's been pretty cool. So they've been really crucial to the company's success to date. And then on the partnership side of things, we haven't been able to fully engage with our partners that we have that we have. And that's partly because we're still not funded. So, but even having those agreements in place, it's enabled us to go places or open doors.
So talking about funding, it's often a critical part of developing medtech solutions with ambitious goals like Purcell has. Could you share some of the experience in fundraising for your company? Any lessons you've learned in that process that you can purvey to the community listening to this podcast?
Well, early on, I think this is probably 2021 or something like that. I was like, okay, we've got a patent submitted. We've got this fractional team going. We've got a couple of advisors, and we knew what it was that we needed to do. And I went and kind of rattle gunned out to a whole bunch of investors. I did the complete thing that the complete thing you're not meant to do. It's just kind of just go out there and just hope that you get the response. And I didn't. Which is almost 100% going to happen. Or the response I got was, "Hey, you're too early. Where's all the evidence and et cetera of the product?" So, after that happened, I was like, "Okay, cool. Let's spend the next 2 or 3 years actually just getting some validation of what it is that we're working on." And so we made plenty of applications for public funding. It's such a hard space to be in, especially in medtech as well. You're competing against university spinouts or universities going for the money, or longer, more established entities as well that have got more traction and all that. They're closer to market. And this was something that this was my experience. I don't know if it's the same for everyone else, but I did feel like when you're going for the public funding, if you were later stage, and this may be also true actually for going for investment for PE as well, but the later stage you are, the more enticing you are, because the less risk you have.
So gone are the days where large OEM medical manufacturers snatch you up at a very early stage. They want you to churn and burn the midnight oil to get it to a certain threshold, whether it's just pre 510K or whether you achieve a 510K, and that requires a lot of horsepower, a lot of fundraising, knocking on doors, and that also de-risks their situation as well. So yeah, definitely, understand that road. Yeah. So as your company grows, what are some of the challenges you're currently addressing? Development or new programs or new applications, and how are you preparing for those and to continue to expand your application and move the devices forward?
Yeah, well, one of the big challenges is funding. To just because we still haven't gone out for a raise, so we're going out. Sorry, I should say, in early 2025. So one of the challenges that we really have at the moment is computational resources. So there's a lot to do with the drug delivery aspects and in silico development of our smart inhaler that's comms heavy. So we're still, even though we're being really scrappy and being able to, kind of get these results, the funding is probably the big one for 2025. So, but yeah, I think the other ones are, well, it is quite a complex ecosystem that we've got set up, with the academic institutes and, and the other partners and the advisory board, et cetera. Kind of managing that and being able to get the outcomes that we need, and still get the outcomes that we need with the system that we've got in place is pretty tricky, So we kind of need to be able to integrate some more key technical people into the team who have got, some, not the grey hairs, but they've got the skills from the industry that we need to be able to speed up development and tighten up to pipelines and stuff like that.
Excellent. So finally, as the founder and the leader in MedTech for Purcell, what if you were to sit down with yourself, dialing it back a few years, you go back in a time machine, you sit down with yourself, what advice would you offer to yourself? Basically, you're also offering it to other entrepreneurs who were in your position a few years ago. What golden nuggets would you throw at them relative to innovators aiming to make a difference in healthcare like you are?
Mm. Well, tricky questions.
Right? You got to pare it
Definitely.
down to from 15 things you tell yourself to one or two.
Yeah, one or two. Stay on target, don't get is the big one. But no, I think really I'm gonna have to think about this for a second, Greg. And so you can ask me the question again. I'm going to come back to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. I think the big ones are yeah, an
Uh,
idea is just an
Funding,
idea.
if I were to throw my hat in the ring, what I've
Yeah,
heard from, a lot of founders is funding, right? Identify funding methods, not realizing some of the steps or the structures that VCs are looking for, whether it's angel seed, or larger, and truly trying to thread that needle and understand that process. That's
hmm
quite a big hurdle because again, when you're funded, you're getting tranches, and it's always you're trying to get from A to B. You get a tranche, you go from B to C, and metering that out. The other thing is de-risking. A lot of entrepreneurs and startup companies that we interface with, they have big ideas and broad thoughts, and they want to accomplish everything, but it's a finite amount of money, right? Especially in the beginning.
yeah,
And in de-risking their process, sometimes their claims with the FDA are too large or too grandiose relative to their technology, and refining claims, with regards to the 510(k) that they're looking to apply for, will help de-risk and allow the judicious amount of money that they're raising get to a certain milestone, of achieving the 510(k), and then, again, especially with AI and others, then once you get that 510(k), then you'll get more funding, and then you can modify the device and
yeah,
uh, or develop another device and raise more money because you've established themselves. So it's really, to me, what I see as the two big things are de-risking your division, and sometimes first base, second base, or even third base hits are fine. And if you don't have enough funding, it's nice to try for a home run, but focus on those milestones, and then certainly regulatory process and the fun
yeah.
regulatory process, and identifying a proper roadmap. Those are the three things I find. I don't know if
Sure.
that.
Yeah. Like I think you just kind of triggered a big one off for me actually. It's is understanding what that the clinical would look like, and
Mhm.
also the compliance and regulation. And I think, I was kind of always coming at it as a product, patient perspective. And then it really was towards the start of 2024, I started to see, well, actually, if you know what the evidence and all the tests and validation that you need, and if you kind of work from the evidence, that clinical evidence back, and then you've got your roadmap for your compliance, well, that's going to shorten all of your, like any of these kind of like up and down roads that you might go round and round in, trying to say, oh, well, actually, we need to do this. Yeah, I found that was a big one for me actually. That was the biggest thing was understanding that once you understand what it is that you're trying to prove and validate, and you work back from that, well, you've got a shorter timeline to for product development. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so that was the biggest. Yeah. So I
Excellent.
was starting with that, and and fully understanding what the patient healthcare provider needs are. That's not me looking back and saying, oh, well, I needed to look at that again, but they're the two biggest ones. Yeah.
Yeah, well, great. So, Nic, thank you for sharing your journey and your insights with the MIDI audience. And it's been fascinating to hear about Purcell and the work that you guys are doing, with regards to your products and your systems. And I really appreciate your time here today.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I really appreciate you taking the time to have a chat with me about it all. Yeah.
Absolutely. So That brings us to the close of this episode of the MIDI Innovation Vault podcast. A big thank you to Nic Purcell for sharing Purcell's story and his vision for the future of medtech. And we hope this conversation offered valuable insights to the listening audience. And be sure to stay tuned for more discussions with leaders in healthcare innovation. And don't forget to follow MIDI on social media and for updates, as well as Purcell. And Nic, again, thank you very much for being with us here today.
Thank you, Greg. It was a pleasure. Cheers.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of MIDI's Innovation Vault podcast, Medtech's Next Wave, Innovators from LSI. We hope you enjoyed hearing about Purcell's groundbreaking work in respiratory care. Remember to subscribe to the MIDI Innovation Vault and stay tuned for more episodes of Medtech's Next Wave, Innovators from LSI, where we continue to bring you the latest innovations and thought leaders from across the medical technology industry. Until next time, keep innovating and pushing the boundaries of what's possible in healthcare.